Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our 59th edition and our Recoveryview.com live show. For those of you who don't know, my name is Josie Herndon. I'm the founder of Recoveryview, and we started in 2008. We had our first edition. So it's taken us about that many years to get to number 59. So we're excited that we're getting closer to our 100. If I stay consistent with these editions, then we will accomplish that. But for that many years, we've been online only. And then we have live events during the year. We would have live conferences that we would sponsor and co-host. But since COVID, we've been doing our live shows. And I'm very excited to bring on three of our authors. And for those of you who haven't read our new edition, please go to recoveryview.com and then you can sign up to get our editions free. And if you join our email list, if you've never received one of our editions. So I'd like to welcome our first guest. We're going to have three guests, and we're all going to come up as individually and then a panel. But I'd like for you to help me welcome Bob Tyler, who's been working in the inpatient, residential, and outpatient, intensive outpatient levels of care of addiction treatment since 1990. And he is the author of Enough Already. Enough Already. I'm telling you, that's why we have Bob on our show. A Guide to Recovery from Alcohol and Addiction. Help me welcome Bob Tyler.
Hi, Josie. Hi, everybody.
Enough already. I'm telling you,
Enough already.
That's going to be our discussion all night. I've added up to here. Thank you for joining us. Now, I'm going to also bring up Dr. JOANNE BARRON and Dr. LYNNE FRIEDMAN-GELL, who hold doctorate degrees in clinical psychology. They both specialize in treatment of trauma and addiction. They are also co-owners and co-founders of Trauma and Beyond Psychological Center, and they have written an article for us this edition, Working with Complex Trauma, and Bob's going to talk about his article, Observations of an Addiction Group Evaluator. Whose group is it anyways? Help me welcome up Dr. JOANNE BARRON and Dr. LYNNE FRIEDMAN-GELL. Hi, ladies. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Josie.
Show.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, I'm looking forward to discussing all of your projects that you have, and specifically the trauma that you got. Oh, the work that you do is just intense, beautiful work. That's all I got. For you to go deep with us as humans. I say us because I would, if I lived near you, I'd probably be going to just. Everybody, I think most people should have a therapist of their own. So I do. And I've done a lot of trauma work over the years, but anytime something new happens, the trauma comes back up. That's what I've noticed for myself this round with COVID and losses. I thought, okay, I've been doing treatment for years, but here it comes again, right?
Yeah, definitely. Not uncommon at all.
Yeah.
Kind of like a volcano that erupts from time to time with the...
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it is relieving though, because if it is a volcano that's under there, it's nice for it to go somewhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Just go to the universe and be gone. And then here, that's kind of the way the living in this world, I guess, just part of it, I would think. Yeah. All right. So Bob, would you like to say a few words to our audience before we get started?
Well, sure. You had asked me to talk a little bit about the article that I wrote. It basically comes out of a passion that I have for group evaluations. I've been blessed to be able to do many of them over the past few decades. And I've seen a lot, I've learned a lot. And one of the things that I've learned is that there's not enough group evaluations going on out there.
Yes.
I think I mentioned to you earlier that, I'll go and do a group with, people that have been doing this work for years, like decades. Mm-hmm. And they tell me that this is the first time they've ever had a group evaluation. And I'm like, that's just flabbergasting to me that, as somebody who's run treatment programs, I want to know what's going on in my groups. And if they haven't had group evaluations, well, whoever they're working for, nobody knows what they're doing. They might have worked, is it just because they've worked at all these reputable treatment centers and that, and they interviewed well and got their job, but you got to know what's going on, in the groups. And frankly, most people, I think probably almost everybody I've been in group with it's like really clear that they care about their clients. Clear to me. I mean, I know this person, I've talked to them, I know they care about their clients. But in some cases, Josie, it's like I want to say to them, will you tell your face that? Right. So they get into
Right.
this like Jungian, like psychoanalytic, like therapist look, right? And they're talking about like this super painful stuff. And there's just this like blank analytical stare, right? Rather than, leaning into it and, exhibiting, validation for what the person's going through and empathizing with them and showing a willingness to come over and sit in their pain with them. That's like what we need, when we're experiencing stuff. And a lot of, I'm really looking forward to hearing from the good doctors here regarding trauma, because most of the stuff when I am really struggling and the stuff that I'm sharing, the stuff that's super painful, emanates from my traumatic upbringing. And when I can get somebody who can like understand how I could possibly feel the way I feel, empathize with me, and just be willing to come and sit in the pain with me and not analyze it, crying out loud. That's all I need.
Well, I was going to say, sometimes I'll be walking around my treatment center and kind of listening to the groups or just checking things out, not getting myself involved. But what I like to notice is, okay, is the facilitator talking or is the client speaking? To me, sometimes I'll hear and I'm like, wait, that's not an educational group. This is supposed to be a process group. So, and then I hear them almost, like you said, they're speaking too much, in my opinion, because I'm thinking, and then I have other group facilitators that you don't even ever hear them hardly speak, just to kind of, shift the group around, but the clients are speaking. So I'm not saying that, but I could see where, rather than talking, listening, because I think that's what a therapist should do anyways, right? Rather than explaining too much. I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking there's probably certain things like that you critique, when I'm guessing that is part of your evaluation. So there must be some balance that you're looking for when you're evaluating.
Absolutely. In fact, that's one of the main topics of this particular article that I wrote for Recoveryview, is that, you go into a group and like, whose group is it? That's part of the title. Whose group is it anyway?
That's right. Whose group is it anyway?
Is this the client's group or is this the counselor's group? Sometimes I'll go into a group and it's like, the counselor is there and there's like a half moon set up around the counselor. Well, who's the focus of attention there, right?
Yes.
It's the counselor. And then, counselors, especially newer counselors, they go through all that, the education and, all the hours to get certified. And then they finally get certified and they want to show their clients and the world that they know what they're doing. And so the client will be sharing something and then they have this like golden nugget that they just can't wait to get out of their mouth. I don't know, almost not even listening to what the client's saying anymore. So they can say it and, prove that they belong, doing this work. But instead, like, our job is to work ourselves out of a job with our clients. And if I'm the one that's given all the solutions and all the feedback, then I'm really stunting the growth of the group. I really, I should never, unless somebody is sharing some trauma or some really painful stuff, the counselor should never be the first one in. It should always be like, what's, let's hear about, does anybody have any clarifying questions or feedback? What's happening for the group as he or she is sharing this. And so what happens in the process is that we're teaching the client's problem solving skills. And we're also allowing and measuring their ability to provide feedback to each other and receive feedback to each other, because part of the working ourselves out of a job with them is not needing us anymore. And to not need us anymore, they have to have other people in their lives who can provide the validation and the empathy and the understanding of what the person's going through. Now,
and it also teaches them to do that as well for other people, to listen, feel empathetic, not just think about themselves, because I know also in groups, sometimes they'll tend to be one person that wants to take all the attention in the group and speak the most. So that person might do well by learning to listen. Perhaps they weren't a listener as far as the clients go.
Yeah.
And the facilitator can help navigate that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's important to really structure the group and let the group know where you want it to get to. Like, after we do this feeling, the group rules, which is important, I think, in every group, and we do a feeling round. We're gonna, if you want to claim some time during the feeling round, do so, and then we're gonna allow, the first person to share, and then once they get done sharing, I'm gonna be expecting you guys to jump in with feedback. Now, if it's a young group, I might say something like, I will start modeling feedback for you guys to begin with, so you guys can see what appropriate feedback looks like. But this is really teaching you guys how to do it. And so when this group is running how I want it to group, I'm just going to be sitting back watching you guys and listening to you guys and moving the group on when it needs to get moved on. And when it's time to move on, I might give my 2 cents on the work that you did, or, congratulate you, or give you, some positive strokes on, what you just did. And then we move on to the next person who will share. And then you guys will give feedback. And then when I feel like it's time, we'll move it on. So really the counselor shouldn't be participating. Now a psychoeducational group is different, right? But for a group process, maybe 10% of the time, the counselor.
So in your evaluation, you kind of have for either or different types of groups, whether it's a process group, whether it's a psychoeducational group. So you have different evaluations depending on the type of group it is.
Yes, but here's the problem. So there's a lot of, like, I've worked in both private and private for-profit and public programs, publicly funded programs. The publicly funded programs almost always have all psychoeducational groups of some sort and no real group process. And that's a problem. Right. Because if alcoholics and addicts run from uncomfortable emotion by drinking and using, then we need to use our groups to provide an environment where they can learn that they can actually feel and experience uncomfortable emotion with the help of their sober support without having to use substances. And these group process, this is the training ground to be able to do that, right? Yeah. And so for programs where it's all psychoeducational, what I do is train the group facilitator to have, so much of the group is going to be the actual education, but you're going to have some time afterwards to process. Now that it can start off with a focus on what the education is, but we got to have room for group process, and we have to have time in group. So like when the education's happening, or there's some Q&A, or like it taps into something that's going on for a person, we need to be able to say, you know what, let's put this education away for a minute. I really want to hear more about what happened to you.
Right. So it can, yeah.
And then so there's a clear indication that we've moved now from didactic to process. And then when we wrap that segment up, then, we can pull back.
For them to know that's okay to do. But it's interesting that you mentioned that most have never been evaluated, and they've gone from school where they learn about it and haven't been evaluated, even probably, of course, during their internship, although they're supposedly supervised, but that's not that. So there's a whole lot of different levels. So you might even get your evaluations into supervision for interns so that they're used to getting evaluated.
Well,
I get to see this evaluation going everywhere.
In school, Josie, I don't know that a lot of people actually get very much practice. I don't remember like role-playing groups or anything,
right? Yeah.
In school. And what's supposed to happen is you do your internship, and then you shadow a counselor and see how they do groups, and then you should be, viewed doing groups, until they think that you're ready to do your own group. And and then now we know what the person's doing. But all too often, Josie, they get done with their classroom hours, and they go to their internship, and in some cases given a caseload.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, given a caseload immediately. That's true, because in California you can do that with a percentage of the counselors. They can be interns. So it does get a little tricky with that, and that's up to the clinical director. But those are things that you can teach as you're working with your new tool, I would say, because tools are great to have for treatment centers and counselors. And you were president of KDAC many years ago, I think. right? How long ago was that? I
Yeah,
remember
it was like 07 to 09.
yeah. So I remember you were president of CADAC, which is where the California Association for Counselors, and so your big thing was to teach the counselors and make sure that they had all their educational hours. So you know exactly what's needed in this area. So,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you were mentioning that you're also working on your education right now. What else are you doing, Bob?
Well, I'm doing consulting. I have a private practice here in Long Beach.
Okay.
My public speaking has taken a rough road because of COVID. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to when we can all get together again and start doing live trainings. That's real. The group evaluations and the public speaking are really my favorite things to do. And I'm
Yes.
still producing the educational videos. You can go to my
Mhm.
website there, bobtyler.net, and see the rehab videos that I have.
We love your videos at the facility. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We love sharing
thank you.
the
Thank you.
videos with our clients. It's really great.
I actually have them streamable now. So if
Oh.
anybody that's listening would like to try them out at no cost, we can do that. And I can work with you guys on a deal for that. And then there's always enough already, a guide to recovery from alcohol and drug addiction.
Yes.
This is my EVVY Award-winning book that I wrote for people who can't afford rehab. Obamacare actually changed things in that now people in most counties are able to get help. But this book would be like, how like you get, like, especially in private for-profit programs where you give them a big book and a 12 or whatever.
Right.
Man, this would be an amazing adjunct because it's a super easy read. It's
Yes.
written for the alcoholic and addict. I got rid of all the clinical jargon. And it's a entertaining read because there's practical application in the form of my personal experience with the stuff that I'm teaching and my experience of working with clients over the past 3 decades or so. So yeah, and it's on its way is a narrated version of it. It's going to be waiting to get it published by what is it, Amazon?
Oh, the
So it'll be an audio.
Audible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be on Audible.
Audible. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's great.
So,
wow, congratulations. That's
yeah.
Everybody's doing books like that, just listening to them while they're driving and
Yeah.
while you're driving and so forth.
And lastly, the other thing I'm doing is continuing education. I have continuing education courses on my website that are basically recorded webinars that kind of look a little bit like this.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Yeah.
And with that, do you offer CEUs?
Yes.
Okay. So if they need extra CEUs, they can go to your website.
Yes. I have a 3-hour ethics. I know everybody needs
ethics. A 3-hour ethics for CEUs. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make sure that everybody at my facility knows that, all the counselors, because they're always looking for ethics still.
Thanks.
So that's amazing. Well, Bob, this has been wonderful having you speak on your topic. I'm going to bring up Dr. JOANNE BARRON and Dr. LYNNE FRIEDMAN-GELL, and then we're going to bring you back up at the end so we can have a group discussion with questions.
Awesome.
So thank you. That was wonderful.
Josie, it's just a pleasure to be on here with you. We go back a long ways, and it's been awesome to see your company grow and you grow as a person and as a professional.
I appreciate that. And I look forward to putting together a live event so that we can have you speak.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So you can do your public speaking out in the desert.
We love that.
We will do that.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. All right. Okay, Dr. JOANNE BARRON, Dr. LYNNE FRIEDMAN-GELL. Hello, ladies, welcome back. And we want to now have you guys speak about your article and your book for us so that our audience can know a little bit more about what you're doing and the important work you're doing with trauma. Oh, JOANNE, we can't hear you. I think you're on mute. Okay.
Still muted at the bottom of the screen. But hi, Josie. Thank you so much for having us here today. And it's a pleasure to be part of your wonderful show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know we talked over lunch in June about this at a conference. Was it June?
Yes.
Yes, it was June because it was the West Coast Symposium.
Was it June? No, it wasn't June.
October.
Because of COVID.
It was
No,
September,
September or
that's right.
something like that. It's going to
Yeah.
come up again in June, though. So I hope
It
we'll
is.
see you again.
Yeah, we will definitely see you there. So thank you ladies for joining and contributing the article.
Thanks for having us. And thank you, Bob, too. That was a great talk. I really liked what you said about empathy and attuning with clients and really being there with them. I think that's so important in any treatment, any kind of treatment at all. So Lynn and I wrote a book when COVID first started. I think we were isolated and we had lots of time on our hands. So we wrote a book called, what is it called, Lynn?
It's the Intergenerational Trauma Workbook, Strategies to Support Your Journey of Discovery, Growth, and Healing. And it's on Amazon. It's a wonderful workbook where we give some psychoeducation, and then there's some like curiosity questions about yourself and your family and what might have come up over, you know, generations that contributes to certain ways in which we experience distress or have created ways to exist in the world and live our lives that we kind of think about as protective strategies. And it just feels like what we do, we don't realize where it comes from. And then we've got like some really good somatic relaxation exercises. So we find it works wonderful. We use it in our treatment program. And it's a great, I worked the 12 steps and this is like another layer.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about how the layers just come up, right, with trauma. And even if we've done some trauma work or, we think we've done trauma work and then something comes up, I say we think because I don't think it's ever always complete, I've learned, but there'll be some situation that'll happen in life that can trigger that. So how do you guys address that with your clients when it's just like, wow, that just kind of popped out? Do you help them figure out where that came from?
Sure. It's interesting. We were talking before the show about everything that's going on in the world right now.
Yes.
The war in the Ukraine. We've just come out of 2 years plus with COVID. The world has been through a lot of trauma. And so for people that have experienced trauma, to talk a little bit about what that is. So when we're talking about trauma, trauma can be the event, the war, being in the war, being in COVID, getting COVID, but it's what happens to you personally. The effects of the trauma on us as people is what we are talking about and what we treat. Our article we wrote was on complex trauma. And when we're talking about complex trauma, we're usually talking about what happens in childhood and how that makes us vulnerable in the rest of our lives for additional trauma over and over again. And we'll see that people that actually come up with PTSD after traumatic events usually have already had lots of complex trauma going on in their life. And so I think everybody who's a therapist or works in treatment right now has seen an influx of people into their practices and treatment programs because the world has been a traumatic place. And so I'm glad to hear more and more people talking about trauma, recognizing trauma, because for a long time, as Bob and you mentioned, so many people, especially in early recovery or not even in recovery, maybe they don't even have addiction. If they've had complex childhood trauma, often people don't even realize that they've had trauma. It's just, oh, this is just the way I grew up. But they come to therapy sometimes because they're depressed or they're anxious or they're having problems in their relationships. Trauma really affects relationships. Complex trauma happens in relationships. And then it affects this template of how we see others and see the world and how we even see ourselves, our own identity. So it sets us up for trauma over and over again.
And I think in the recovery community, there's a lot of talk about the ACE score, the adverse childhood experiences, and that is extremely important. But those are more easily recognizable traumas. We might think of those as big T traumas, but with complex trauma, we sometimes use the language of small T trauma, and it could be these repetitive experiences of misattunement from family, of some kind of abandonment. It could be being bullied in school. It could be having learning disabilities or having an alcoholic or addicted family member. And so there's, it could be a parent who's got, workaholism, so it could come in so many different ways. Like Joanne was just saying, it seems normal because that's your childhood, it could be your friend's childhood. And so it seems normal. And children, we can learn to end up neglecting our own feelings if they're neglected in the family. And then we find drugs. I know I did. And then, then it's this whole road until we hope everyone finds recovery. And then that experience of, as Bob was talking about, being listened to.
Exactly.
Finding a place to express feelings and understand the patterns.
And feel heard, actually, probably.
Yes.
Heard and seen.
And it's in our article, we wrote about treating complex trauma, and we wrote about the stage-based model. I think we wrote about Judith Herman's 3 phases. We named it a little bit differently, but basically it's the same model. And the first stage always has to be safety. So in the first stage of trauma treatment, we're looking at helping the person to feel safe and reducing symptoms. So whether their symptoms are flashbacks or nightmares or extreme anxiety or addiction, we see that as a symptom of trauma.
Eating disorders.
That's right. All of those compulsive behaviors, we want to first work with that. We want to get the person safe enough that they don't have to use something every night to calm themselves down or drink themselves to sleep or whatever, because only then can we really start addressing the deeper core issues. And what Bob was talking about, the empathy, or what the way we would talk about it, I think, is the right brain to right brain, really synchronizing, not just with empathy, but with really feeling what the client is feeling and being there with them and helping them to hold that space, making it safe for them to feel those feelings. It's so important. So as a therapist, I have to be able to contain my own feelings that may be coming up and be present for the client.
Yeah, and I just add to that, feeling those feelings at a deeper level so that it becomes somatic. So it's not just a cognitive left brain analysis of the feelings, but to really see where those feelings land in your body. Where do they land in your heart, or where do they land in your belly? And where do they create tensions or discomfort that we try to escape? And really that slowing down and pausing and allowing to feel and see those sensations and feelings and experiences.
So almost like having a relationship with it.
Yes,
Like
it's having a relationship with yourself.
With yourself, with your trauma, with your body.
Yeah.
Engaging fully in what's
in the
going
present.
on. The present. Because that's interesting. When you talk about it, then you can feel where it lands in your body, like you said, and oh wow, no wonder my hip hurts all the time, or whatever.
Yes.
You can kind of identify some of those aches and pains, maybe.
Well, trauma can really manifest in the body as all kinds of physical illnesses and symptoms and pains. And another way that trauma manifests is through numbness, in the body. So there are the clients that feel everything, and then there are clients who feel nothing. They may think a lot, they may be very intellectual, but they feel nothing from the neck down, and they're not connected to their bodies at all. So for this client, we're going to go very slowly in helping them to become, to feel safe in their body and to begin to identify sensations and feelings that they haven't been able to. And so the work has to be very slow. We never want to just jump into the trauma work, into the deep trauma. We want to do a lot of resourcing, a lot of.
I can see where even yoga or Tai Chi, those
That's
types
right.
of things would help, because then if somebody's not connected with their body, that helps them get connected with their body.
Very
That
much
type of
so.
Mhm.
Yoga, breathing
breathing
exercises,
exercises.
mindful meditation, all of
Yeah.
those kinds of things. Yes.
Mm.
They're great ways to help learn how to slow down, how to pause, how to feel into your body safely.
Mm.
Mhm.
And so we want to take it slow. And even when we begin to reprocess trauma, we want to do little pieces at a time so that we're not overwhelming the client, so that they can stay in their window of tolerance. Alan Shore, when he's talking about doing right brain therapy, he talks about safe but not too safe. We want to take them to the edge of that window so that maybe they can experience something that they haven't, positive or negative,
Mm.
feeling something that they haven't felt before, and we can be there with them. But
Mm.
we'll do it in titration. So we'll take them there, and then we'll bring them back into that window of tolerance, into a resourced place where
That makes sense, because I can imagine then with somebody's trauma, they just don't want to go there. I mean, so they have it. So they put it away, they put it away. So then you're literally bringing it forward slowly so that they, knowing that they're not going to die if they go there. Because it's almost like a
Exactly.
fight or flight for people.
Well, that is
Right?
exactly what it
Yeah,
is.
that's what it
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
that's what it is. The
Mm.
nervous system is
Mm.
working, the autonomic nervous system is working and unconsciously showing them or leading them to either be very activated or just to be numb or even to disassociate if the feelings and the
Disassociate.
experience
That's so
becomes
much
too
easier to
much.
do. I think when somebody's in acute trauma, they disassociate. You can almost see it.
Yes.
When my niece died recently, my sister, because it
Mm,
was so traumatic,
of
just
course.
shocking. I felt like I didn't know where she was. I couldn't find her
Yeah.
for a while,
Yeah.
because you just get to that place. So we just love her and love her and love her, but it's,
Yeah.
you're just so much in shock, and it's almost like you're not even grounded. So
Yes.
that's where some of that, and then people can stay like that for a long time for their own protection.
That's
I
right.
think.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Well, we have somebody on the Facebook. It doesn't have their name, but it's on my from the Josie Ramirez Herndon Facebook. Can you explain the process of EMDR? They're asking, because I know everybody's talking about EMDR. So what do you guys do EMDR at your?
We do. We
Okay.
do EMDR and specifically attachment focused EMDR. And Lynn, you want to talk about it? Because I've been talking a lot.
So, yep, but help me out here. Now, the name eye movement desensitization reprocessing is kind of what it was created with that. As it's grown as a model of treatment, we don't always use the eye movement part. But what it is this bilateral stimulation. It's stimulation of the right brain, the left brain, the right brain, the left brain, and working with our nervous system. And so we find these ways that the adaptive processing system, but ways that we've adapted to our trauma. So the way we work with it at our center is we'll do a lot of building of resources, like helping clients learn to find in their mind's eye a calm place or a protective figure, a nurturing figure, things that they've never had in their lives. And simultaneously to this exploration, they may be holding these, what we call tappers, and there's a little sensation, a tiny little vibration that moves from right to left. And during that process, they're going to tell you, we're going to start again with something small, but the client is going to tell you about a traumatic moment. And they're going to tell you the beginning, middle, and end. And then they're going to tell you the worst part, where the feeling that comes up and where it lands in their body. And then with the calming vibration of the bilateral stimulation, they're going to be able to look into that experience with a new way. By bringing in these resources, the support of their therapist, these protective figures, their calm place, they're going to be able to stay connected to themselves and go into that moment, but not as it's happening, as if it's happening, but as if they're seeing it happening. And then they're going to be able to sort of bring in a resource to soothe them, so that experience no longer carries the trauma response.
It's almost like almost like a witness versus a memory, in a sense. We're kind of watching it from the outside in versus remembering it. Does that make sense? Because I guess if you're remembering a certain trauma, you have those same reactions every time.
Well,
If you're
that's the
just
thing about
remembering.
trauma is that we experience it, the feelings of it,
Mhm.
as if it were happening
Right.
right now.
Right.
And so we are instructing the client to have a dual awareness of, we want them to bring up the memory and
Right,
feel it as
okay.
if they were feeling it, but also to have the awareness that they are here with us in our
Okay.
presence.
And that they're an observer in a sense.
Yes. So one of the things that happens too that's so interesting about EMDR is
Mhm.
that when we're processing the trauma, whether it's through the eye movement or with the sensors in the hand or however we do it, it seems to not only access that particular memory, but this whole network of memories of similar
Mm.
traumas. So the client may start out talking about something and then all of a sudden remember something they hadn't thought about or felt in many, many years.
That's
And
interesting.
I think that's part of the reason it's so
It
powerful.
brings up all of it that's attached to it.
Like this bridges back, it threads together all of
So
that.
then it's not just the one memory that they remember, because
Right.
there's a bunch of subconscious things that come up then.
Exactly. And so trauma doesn't get stored in the memory like normal memories.
Mhm.
It's in these little bits and pieces that don't get integrated. And so with EMDR, we can access those unintegrated memories, and the bilateral stimulation brings them up and helps us to integrate those. And so the trauma doesn't feel so upfront, so present. And what happens is it doesn't go away, but it doesn't have the same power. We remember it more like a memory and don't feel it like.
Oh, so it's the opposite then, I was saying. Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. We have a therapist at our facility that just got certified in, he's an MFT that just went and did his training for EMDR. So he's coming back to the facility and he'll be treating his clients, because we have two psychologists in it and an MFT that work with our dual diagnosis or our mental health clients. But even with our addiction clients, like you said, there's a lot of trauma. So he asked if he could go and do this training, and we've heard so much wonderful things that we said yes. I think that was Jim who asked the question, because he knows that Eric's coming back, and he'll be doing the EMDR on some of his clients. But we do have them for long term, like you do.
Yeah.
So and once our therapists start working with them, then clinically they judge when it's time. So,
Sure.
but the counselors don't do that work, but the therapists do. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and at Trauma and Beyond, where we'll integrate several modalities with the client.
Mhm.
Some will be doing EMDR, some will be doing somatic experiencing,
Mhm.
we're doing like DBT as well, because that's really helpful for the impulse control.
Mhm.
And mood lability. And so we'll integrate right brain, left brain, relational, and the whole body, so that we, can sort of meet the clients where they're at and help them move beyond that.
Right.
Kind of the trauma and beyond,
The trauma and beyond. Exactly. That's right. We have one of our therapists that does he does the psychodrama group, the big.
Oh, that's
psychodrama.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been doing
Psychodrama
that
is
for
really powerful.
Dr. Ramesh. You might know him from, he used to be at Betty Ford Center.
Mhm.
And so we're blessed with
Great.
our therapists we have in the Valley.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, this is so great, the work you're doing. So you're finding you're busier than ever, I bet, right now.
Oh,
You're
yeah. Yeah. Just both in our private practices and at the center, it's just been a very, very busy couple of years.
Yeah.
So it just speaks to the state of the world. One thing I want to mention, just thought of this because of Bob again. We do groups at our center. Everybody gets individual therapy every day that they're with us, but we also do groups. And some of the groups are psychoeducational, some of the groups are process groups. And for years, Lynn and I both did a lot of training together. And we learned, we heard, oh, you can't process trauma in groups, you can't do trauma groups. Not true. As a matter of fact, we find that our community really appreciates having a group where they hear other people's stories and they learn that they're not alone and they're not the only ones, and they
That
learn
makes
how
a
to
big
support each other. We don't want them to process in detail their individual trauma, and because we don't want them to traumatize other in the group, but there's such value in allowing trauma survivors to be together and to share how they felt and to share their fears and to share their hopes. It's a very, very healing experience.
I think in a group setting that the sharing of the hope is important,
Very important.
because then that cognitively brings them back to where they are today,
Yeah.
perhaps. And, you know, and just going back to like, okay, that was then and this is now kind of thing.
Really important.
Especially on an outpatient basis, because they have to get in their car and go back home and do all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Very
Really
important.
working with the present. And some clients have trauma that's even pre-verbal and there's no cognitive memory, but we're working in the present with what is they experience now. And we can thread it back and understand where it came from, but we can also just work with it in the present. Because you feel, you know, we feel it, you know, we feel it now. And it's like, so what are you feeling and what do you need? And
Especially anxiety. So if somebody's coming in with anxiety, then you can figure that out and help give them some tools to, you know, when they go home, if they start working themselves up again. I'm sure a lot of your clients, the outlet is anxiety for the trauma.
Oh yeah, a lot of the clients have anxiety, or you know, they can't stay in their window of tolerance, or their window of tolerance is very narrow. So the nervous system is always very, very activated. And so we do work on a lot of skill building, giving them resources to help calm themselves, calm their nervous system, and also skills so that they can learn to tolerate their feelings. For people that are trauma survivors, and just for people in general, I think, that have difficulty with staying in their window of tolerance, even positive emotions can be very triggering. For some people, they just have not had enough positive experiences. So when something good happens, when they experience something loving or warm, their next thing is, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
That's actually not their comfort zone, because they don't have
exactly right.
That's not what their experience is.
That's right.
So they're uncomfortable.
And trauma really limits the capacity for a range of feelings. So one of the things we work on is helping clients to be able to broaden their capacity to feel both negative and positive feelings without going into major distress.
Right. Wow. That's amazing work. It's God's work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Because you go there with them. You go to the depths of their trauma, we'll call it, but wherever that takes them, and then you help lift them up and bring them back to where they are now. So they can breathe again.
Right.
And even to a better place than they've been before.
And to a better place, right?
That's what
that's the goal, to a better place.
Yeah. Because, you know, if you've grown up with complex trauma, you don't even realize what you have missed. You've never had it to miss. Some of our clients have never felt safe. They've never felt loved or known how to really feel love. They have just, their expectation is that the world is kind of a frightening, not so nice place. And so our hope is that we can help guide people to a place that is much more alive, much more connection to themselves, to others, to the world, and that they might start to experience feelings of awe about being
feelings
alive.
of joy, and
That's right.
and knowing what that is.
That's
Because
right.
I'm sure they hear it all the time: joy, happiness, positivity, and like you said, that probably makes them go like, "Oh, please, you know, what does that even mean?"
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
if internally, what, you know, what does that mean?
Right.
That is so true.
From a visceral standpoint, like they could probably say, you know, surface wise, they can do it because, you know, we mirror each other, but from a visceral level,
They don't.
they don't know what that is.
Right.
Yeah.
So to be able to feel it deeply, like on their own and with others, that connection to self and others is what we're always working with.
Because otherwise, if they don't do that, I can imagine that their relationships, like you said, then they can only for so long have that facade, because relationships are so intimate that, you know, after a while, that's when people go, well, geez, he was like this. You know, I'm just thinking about kids that date and stuff. You know, my daughter was saying, you know, now they're in long-term relationships, but at first it was like, well, after 6 months, we found out who they really were, you know, or something. That if a relationship, you know, would last 6 months and then it would blow up, that was kind of their line. But I think that that's probably what would happen, is somebody can like maybe have a facade for so long with their partner, and then if they don't ever do their trauma or, you know, that kind of stuff, then they're, you know, that just doesn't work anymore, the pretendsies fun stuff. So that could be some of it, why, you know, serial relationships, I would think.
Well, also, you know, our template for relationships is based on our earliest relationships with our primary caregivers. So if that relationship, if those early relationships were less than positive, our expectation is going to be less than positive. And we have had to come up with adaptive strategies to survive in those less than adequate primary relationships. So as a child or an infant, one of the ways we do that is through dissociation. And so we numb, and our capacity to feel and to really be intimate in a relationship is greatly compromised. We can also do it by learning how to please and learning, being a people pleaser, and, you know, kind of being submissive and trying to please, just like for children that had to please their parents or take care of their parents. There are many ways.
There's so many.
Compromise their own identity.
Their own identity, right?
So in treatment, it's about learning to sort of like all that stuff that was pruned and wasn't created, to be able to create that while you're in treatment, because of all what we call the neuroplasticity. We can continue to grow and regrow and expand, and the possibilities are endless. And that's the joy and the awe.
That's the good news.
Yeah.
That's the good news. Well, let's bring Bob back up. We have, I think, 13 minutes, and we're going to have a little discussion. Bob, would you like to join our discussion?
Oh my gosh, I'm like back here chomping at the bit. I want to tell you guys, how much do I owe you? I don't know, but if I don't know if I need to pay you as a fellow professional or as a client. Such good stuff, you guys. I mean,
wonderful.
really.
You too. Thank you.
Like, you know, a couple of things that really came up for me was the validating of this idea that in these groups, we are not necessarily going back to the trauma, but we are dealing with the present emotions. This is stuff alcohol and drug counselors can do, right? This is under the umbrella of a chemical dependence counselor, because alcoholics and addicts run from those current uncomfortable feelings. And when they can share them with, you know, a loving, supportive, you know, support system, then they realize, oh, I can feel this with the help of sober support. And we translate that out to their environment. And so, and then I just have to share this with you. I'll try to make this brief. You guys brought me to a point. I told you, I don't mind saying to whoever's listening, that I just did the EMDR, and it was just absolutely life-changing. And you said that we get so used to, like, we expect what we got.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
And so it was never okay for me to feel and experience or show joy growing up. So at this one point in time, it was like the craziest thing. It was almost like a dream state. I'm standing there at this wrought iron gate with a key for the gate. And beyond the gate is this road, and I don't know what's around the corner. And all I had to do to get that joy was to turn the damn key. And I couldn't do it. It was too scary. And we had to create like a space for me to like just before I could actually turn the key. So I did.
That's beautiful.
Powerful.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing. And that was through your experience with your therapist and
EMDR.
the EMDR.
Yeah.
And changing that whole memory, or bringing it as a safe memory.
Yeah.
And now knowing it's that easy to turn the key, and here you go.
And to remember to turn the key.
And remember to turn the
Keep
key.
remembering, turn the key. Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for
Bob.
sharing that.
You
Yeah.
guys, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, just listening to your voices, just so nice. Joanne, it's amazing.
Thank you.
You guys can do the audios with your books and do some audio trauma. Both of your voices are soothing, and everybody could just enjoy that and know. I mean, I know I felt that, just like Bob said, how much do I owe you? Because I was having a tough day. This felt like one of those, I call them my forever days. Have you ever, those days that just seem to go on and on and on, and the grief just, they seem like forever days.
Yeah.
And going to a funeral today after I was, and it just, wow. And then now with you, it's just been a blessing because, I know that this too shall pass.
Yes.
This too shall pass. Even though we're all in the middle of stuff right now, the world's in the middle of stuff, but we somehow just to get the strength to keep going forward.
Yes.
That we can turn the key again for joy.
And remembering that, Joanne, as she was talking about earlier, that titration, and I think we need to sometimes live our lives that way. Like, maybe, for me, if I have the news on or something, I titrate it. I watch a little bit and then I got to turn it off and I got to go do something resource building. I've got to yoga, some meditation, call a friend, take a walk, look at the nature, hold my dogs. I have to really work to balance the work, life, the hard stuff, the good stuff, so really that's I find so important.
That's very important.
I feel too so grateful, just a lot of gratitude because of my own recovery and because of first working in the addiction field. I was exposed not too early on, but fairly early on. First, it was to adult children of alcoholics. And I remember hearing Claudia Black speak. And I thought, and I was in a professional capacity listening to her when she first, and I was like, oh my God, she's talking about me.
Yes.
I could feel it. And then John Bradshaw, I got to work with John Bradshaw. And then when I worked for Sierra Tucson, being exposed to all this trauma and hearing Alan Shore and Dan Siegel and Bessel van der Kolk. And so I just feel really grateful that being in the right places at the right time.
That's such a blessing that's where you worked, because that's where you were around all those wonderful people that, came forward with the trauma work.
Yes.
And you were there and you were able to glean from it because, you were in that environment.
I was so fortunate because I was so interested in it because, of course, my own trauma and addiction background. And so when I went back to school, that was my area of focus. But how fortunate are we that work in the field? Because I know that I don't know that I would have known to even seek help if it weren't for being exposed to all of the teachings I had been exposed to.
I think you're right. It is a blessing. You're right about that. A blessing that we've been in the field. I am so grateful for so much. I was telling my husband, Jim, that, you can watch that stuff so that way prayers for the world and prayers, send that. But where I am today, I'm grateful. Yeah. And Jim and I were just this morning saying how grateful we are for our lives. Because if we think about, where other people are or whatever, that's, I'm just grateful for the work we are able to do and the clients. We're servicing so many clients now at our treatment center. We're taking Medi-Cal. So we actually are integrating the Medi-Cal. We talked about that. So we're taking our Medi-Cal now. And so our Medi-Cal clients are getting the same treatment as our insurance clients. So they're not the county, the county clients that we service are getting the EMDR, they're getting the psychodrama, they're getting their trauma, all of that. So they're not just getting, and I feel blessed that we're able to do that, that we're able to help the clients with our.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Now.
If I may, Joanne, you had brought up Claudia Black, and the people that we have the pleasure of rubbing elbows with in this profession. Terrence Gorski was a big influence.
Yeah.
He actually wrote the foreword for the book Enough Already. But I have a shameless plug now that you brought Claudia Black up. I'm going to see if you can see this. I never met her until before she did this, but I sent my video to her and I said, "Hey, you're revered in this profession. Would you mind giving me a quote?" So I don't know if you can see that.
No, go ahead and read it.
See it. Yeah, read it to us.
Dynamic, forthright, and connecting to his audience, Bob Tyler does a great job explaining cravings and relapse. I saw her at a conference in San Diego, and I interrupted her lunch, and I said, "I can't believe you did that for me." She says, "I never do that, but I love the video."
Oh, that's wonderful.
So
And the good thing is, I mean, the interesting part is I'm sure she would do it if like a friend asked her or whatever, because she's done that, but she didn't know you until this. And so that says a lot. That means that she was very impressed with your work.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and I don't know, Josie, if you ever saw it, and maybe I can send it to you if you wanted to blast it out. But I was asked to write a tribute to Terrence Gorski, and it was published in Counselor Magazine. So, and it's on my website.
I'd love to put that out. Yes, because when he first passed, I did some stuff in his honor, but not an actual written. So I'll send that out to the community.
Yeah, I'll send you the link.
Wonderful. And if you ladies have anything that you'd like for me to send out, then let me know, because we have the list, and it just we haven't been using it that much anymore with everything. So I just want to send out quality stuff to our audience, or our what would they be, subscribers to my email list.
One of the things that I'll let you know about, Josie, is we're restarting our Treating Trauma webinar series. And we have monthly webinars on treating trauma. We've had really great speakers in the past, and we're just revamping that. So that'll be.
Is this for the public or is this for professionals?
It's for professionals.
Professionals. Okay.
Although we probably need to do something for the public too, because we've been getting a lot of interest from just regular folks.
Because Debbie and I are on a lot of, hers is the Spirituality Gone Wild, and that has platforms with Unify that goes to over 1 million people. And I mean, these platforms that all these go to, and there's Women Rising that she's on, for this large platform that she could probably have you guys speak and different things like that. So, if you have anything that you're going to do towards the public, let me know, because we definitely can send it out to, because whenever I'm on those shows, or, and then I bring up recovery and then Debbie talks about it, there's always questions about trauma.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of spiritual people that work on it, but it's not the same. So we're always talking about that, see your therapist, it's balance, and then, do your spiritual practice. But, everybody knows that there's still, have to try to do their deep trauma work one way or the other. So we love to have those resources.
Oh, great. Thank you. And so you were going to say something, Lynn.
Do you guys treat the trauma there at your center on an outpatient basis, or is it a residential, or what is it?
It's IOP and PHP.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And where exactly is it? In what city?
We are in
Sherman Oaks. And we're face to face. Now still some people who want to come and do Zoom, and so we still have some Zoom capabilities. But it's that whole relational component makes it so so important. So sometimes clients come and stay from other states when they have the means to be able to, maybe they have family nearby and they can do that. And
or you can refer them to a hotel nearby or something if they want to come and do.
For now.
Soon we will have a house soon.
Oh, great. Well, definitely let us know when that comes up.
And
then we can refer out for the entire treatment.
Yeah.
I think you guys were talking good. There's just not enough. God has us all doing this work for a reason. And I bless you for the work that you all three do and for being on my show today, because there's so many people out there struggling right now. And I know that you're the best resources. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. And that's why I've been limited with my e-blast lately and things like that, because I don't want to put things out that I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
Things have shifted so much in our industry that I'd rather just hold back and wait until I know, that it's like you guys, and then we can just put that out there, do workshops for them. Or like I was telling Bob, we can have an event out in the desert someday, and where you guys can be speaking live and we can offer some CEUs. And then again, if you have anything to send out to the public, let me know, and Debbie and I can get it out there for you.
Definitely
And that goes for
will.
you too, Bob, because I know that all your relapse prevention stuff is great.
Well, I want to be at the event you have those guys at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. We could all be live.
Pleasure. So wonderful to meet you tonight, Bob. And thank you so much, Josie, for having us.
Thank you for
Thank you,
joining
guys.
and for
Thank
being
you.
patient with our delay. Now we were doing the New Year's edition, and now we're doing the spring. You are wonderful.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Bob. Thank you,
Pleasure.
everyone.
Blessings.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.